George Jung met Colombian cocaine trafficker Carlos Lehder while imprisoned for transporting 660 pounds of cannabis in 1974. They helped Pablo Escobar become the world's wealthiest drug lord once they were released. While he may not be as famous as Escobar, he was an important cog in the machine. Today, we're going to tell you the untold story of El Americano. He went in and out of jail several times, rubbing elbows with the most ruthless figures in drug trafficking, all while becoming a celebrity, owing to the publication of 2001's Blow, in which he was depicted by Johnny Depp. But few drug traffickers have had the kind of contacts, charm, and power as George Jung, an American drug smuggler. Fewer people have managed to avoid execution or life in jail, as Boston George has. Early life. George Jung was born on August 6, 1942 in Boston, Massachusetts. Jung was a good football player when he was younger, but he was a screw-up academically, in his own words. To better understand, picture the typical jock character you'd see in high school-themed movies. That's Jung. Jung went to Manhattan Beach, California, after attending college, and finding marijuana, the substance that defined the counterculture of the 1960s. It was here that he became involved in the drug trade for the first time. Jung began by using marijuana and selling a tiny amount to his pals. That is, until a friend from the University of Massachusetts Amherst paid a visit to Jung in California. Jung discovered that the marijuana he was purchasing in California for $60 a kilo cost a shocking $300 back home. This is how his initial business plan came to fruition: acquire the cannabis locally, fly it to Amherst, and sell it. Jung subsequently stated that he thought that there was nothing wrong with what he was doing because he was providing a product to those who needed it, and it was acceptable. Getting involved with the Mexican cartel. Smuggling marijuana soon became more than a pastime. It was a substantial source of wealth for Jung and his associates, but he desired more. The logical answer, according to Jung, was to cut out the middleman by purchasing the marijuana directly from its source, the Mexican cartel. So, Jung and his colleagues flew to Puerto Vallarta with the objective of making a local connection. Weeks of seeking were unsuccessful, but on their last day there, they met an American girl who led them to the son of a Mexican commander, who subsequently offered the marijuana for only $20 per kilo. The intention was to fly the pot in a tiny plane from Point de Mia in Puerto Vallarta to dry lake beds near Palm Springs, California. Jung, being an adrenaline addict, wanted to fly the maiden trip himself, despite having very little flying experience. He got lost over the Pacific Ocean and was approximately 100 miles off course. But just as it was becoming dark, Jung managed to find his way back and land the plane. He swore to employ experienced pilots after the successful, yet terrifying encounter. The new company endeavor proved to be difficult. After flying the narcotics back to the United States, Jung and his friends would transport them in mobile homes for 3 days, straight from California to Massachusetts. But the firm was also incredibly profitable. Jung thinks that he and his friends earned between $50,000 and $100,000 every month. From jailmates to business partners. However, it would not endure. George Jung was caught in Chicago in 1974 with 660 pounds of marijuana after the man he was supposed to meet was jailed for heroin possession and ratted him out. The officials apologized and said, "They genuinely don't want to bust weed folks, but this is linked to a heroin business." But, as it turned out, being locked up would just open more doors for Boston George. Jung met someone who would alter his life forever in a tiny cell at a jail facility in Danbury, Connecticut. Carlos Lehder, a well-mannered Colombian who'd been arrested for auto theft. In the midst of his carjacking operations, Lehder had become involved in the drug smuggling game, seeking for a means to carry cocaine from Colombian gangs to the United States. Their meeting appeared to be too coincidental to be real at the time. Jung knew how to smuggle narcotics by plane, and Lehder needed transportation. And when Lehder informed Jung that cocaine was selling for $4,000 to $5,000 per kilo in Colombia and $60,000 per kilo in the United States, Jung reported that the bells began to chime and the cash register began to ring in his brain instantly. In an interview with PBS, George Jung described their relationship as a match made in heaven. In the end, it'll either be hell or heaven. Both men were given small sentences and freed around the same time in 1975. When Lehder was freed, he called Jung, who was residing at his parents' home in Boston. He instructed him to locate 2 ladies and send them to Antigua with Samsonite luggage. George Jung recruited 2 ladies who, as he characterized them, were more or less oblivious to what was going on. And he told them they'd be transferring cocaine. But back then, not many people in Massachusetts understood what cocaine was. The women's achievement came as a comfort to him. After they returned to Boston with the narcotics, Jung dispatched them on another expedition, and they once again returned with the drugs unnoticed. Joining Pablo Escobar's empire. George Jung was known as El Americano by the Colombians, and he brought them something they had never had before, an aeroplane. Previously, cocaine could only be transported in luggage or through body packing, a significantly less effective approach with a larger risk of detection. However, Jung arranged for a pilot to fly to the Bahamas to pick up cocaine shipments and deliver them to the United States. The enterprise quickly grew to make millions of dollars in a couple of days. This marked the start of the notorious Medellin cartel. As Jung would later discover, the cocaine would be supplied by the legendary drug lord Pablo Escobar, and Jung and Carlos would transfer it into the United States. Jung was instrumental in making Pablo Escobar's narco trafficking organization a global success. Their smuggling operation followed a set pattern. On a Friday night, a jet would travel from the Bahamas to Escobar's property in Colombia and spend the night. The jet was scheduled to return to the Bahamas on Saturday. On Sunday afternoon, concealed behind the herd of heavy aviation traffic that left the Caribbean for the mainland, the jet would go unnoticed as just another radar dot among many others, until it eventually slid below radar detection and landed on the mainland. Thanks to Jung's planes and contacts, the cartel was delivering almost 80% of all cocaine in the United States by the late 1970s. The decline of George Jung. By 1987, George Jung had amassed a fortune of $100 million and was paying low taxes owing to a Panamanian offshore account. He lived in a luxurious estate in Massachusetts, went to famous parties, and had the most gorgeous ladies. When Lehder decided to testify against the drug traffickers for whom he and Jung had worked, Pablo Escobar, El Patron, personally approached Jung and pushed him to testify against Lehder in order to undercut his credibility. Lehder was sentenced to 33 years in prison and was freed in June 2020. Jung was arrested once more in 1995 and sentenced to jail in 1997. Soon after, he was approached by a Hollywood filmmaker about making a film about his life. Blow, which was released in 2001 and starred Johnny Depp as the title character, made Jung a superstar. He was ultimately freed from prison in 2014, but was imprisoned in 2016 for breaking his parole, after which he lived his life until last year when he died. That's a wrap for this video. If you know something about George Jung that we forgot to mention, let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.